Next 3 weeks, including this, I want to go sort of old school and back to elementary school, and we're going to have some real basic lessons. The next 2 weeks, I want to have a 2-week mini-series on baptism. It will be a reminder, I think, to most of us, but we're always having visitors, and just, again, laying out of where we're coming from with baptism and what the Scriptures have to say about that. I plan on having a little study guide, actually, for you inside the order of worship the next week, and so we'll talk about that and talk about the place of baptism as it moves alongside of grace and faith in the second week. Today, you've come on a great day. I want to talk about giving. I should have had this lesson earlier before the buckets, shouldn't I? We've already had a lesson in giving this morning. We have it every week, and it's just tremendous. But I want to talk about giving first place to giving. You know, God always wants to be first place in our lives, and I believe the place that He occupies in our hearts can be sort of directly connected with the way that we express it in giving. And when it comes to what we do with our money, I just want to remind us that I believe that giving ought to be a first priority. Listen to a couple of verses from the 3rd chapter of Proverbs. We'll put the first of those verses up on the screen. Proverbs 3, beginning in verse 9. Honor the Lord with your possessions, and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. I think that's really sort of the first rule of giving. Honor God with the first of what you have, with the first fruits. God has never been interested in leftovers. He really doesn't care about our scraps, what's left behind after we've spent it all on ourselves. What He demands from us is the best, and it's not because He needs it. Understand that. He's God. What giving does is to test our hearts, to test the direction of our hearts toward God. In the 1st chapter of Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, we read that God's people, they were a giving people, but the way they were giving was not at all acceptable. They'd gotten into the habit of giving God, they were sacrificing sheep, but the sheep might be blind, or they might be crippled or sick. Yeah, they're giving all right, but not surprisingly, God was more than just a little displeased with them somewhat going through the motions to quote-unquote give to Him. Listen to verse 8 of Malachi chapter 1. When you offer the blind as a sacrifice, is it not evil? And when you offer the lame and the sick, is it not evil? Offer them to your governor. Would he be pleased with you? Would he accept you favorably, says the Lord of hosts? God isn't interested in our scraps. God doesn't want our seconds. He wants our firsts. There's an interesting account in 2 Samuel chapter 24. I know I've mentioned this before. Well, I've been here for a while, so I'm sure I've mentioned it. But David, in this story, against the will of God, took a census of God's people. What that was showing was a lack of trust in God. And God said, David, you got to be punished. And He gives him 3 options, and David takes the shorter option. We'll just take a plague. It's just 3 days. The result of that plague was the loss of 70,000 men because of a lack of trust in God. David is a man after God's own heart. He has stumbled, he's fallen, he's made a mess, but he's coming to God to offer atonement. There was a man named Araunah who says, here, David, I will give you whatever it is that you need to make this sacrifice for God. Just take it. It's on the house. And listen to David's answer in 2 Samuel 24. Verse 24. The king said to Araunah, no, but I will surely buy it from you for a price. Nor will I offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God with that which costs me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. David said, I'm not taking a freebie. I'm going to pay for what I give to God. And I ask each one of us, how much is your offering costing you? How much does it affect what you do from day to day? as you purpose to give, that's what we're called to do you put God first? Is he at the top of the list, or does he sometimes get the short end of the stick? I might interrupt myself right here and say, I have no clue what anybody here gives. I don't have access to it. I don't want access to it. So I don't know anything about it. What I know is a final number. That's just about it. So I'm not talking about anybody, and I won't mention, and I know nothing about that. I'm thankfully, cheerfully ignorant in that area. But I ask each one of us, is giving to God an area of priority in your budget? And I bring this up sort of near the beginning of the year because it's a time of thinking fresh. And one thing about our giving, I always appreciate the way that you've risen to the challenge when we present you with special needs and we ask for this and that, and you're just so overflowing. But what I'm talking about here is just regularly boring, routine, week in, week out giving. When you look at your budget and what you're giving, let me just get you to think about the idea of, am I giving more to God than I spend on eating out at a restaurant, or on my hobbies, or this or that in my area of personal interest? I'm not going to give you dollar figures, and you look to the New Covenant, they're not there either. Back into the Old Testament, it was a little bit easier, wasn't it? Give a tenth, tithe. Oh boy, the Pharisees had that down. They'd take seeds, and mint and anise and cumin, and they'd take a tenth of the seeds, and we've done it. We've done our duty. We've given a tenth. So we come to the New Testament, and some say, well, your righteousness should exceed the scribes and Pharisees, so it must be 10% plus. I'm not even saying that. The New Testament doesn't give us the number. Does it let us off the hook? No, as a matter of fact, it goes right to the heart. It's not a number, but what's in your heart. Is your giving an expression of your gratitude to God? Furthermore, is your giving an expression of your faith toward God? It could be easy to look and you get the balance sheet out and say, I just don't know if I can really afford to give to God. Well, that's numbers on a paper. But when you look at the numbers on a paper, also remember, your giving is a matter of faith. And sometimes what God lays out may not quite make sense in human terms. But at the end of the day, he's not coming to a number, he's coming to the heart. Are you giving beyond yourself? Are you giving in second mile ways and seeing what God will do with it? I hope that our giving is a matter of first priority. As a matter of fact, when it comes to this idea of first, one scripture in particular comes to my mind. You may be ahead of me, but it's 1 Corinthians 16 and verse 2. Here's what Paul said in that passage. On the first day of the week, let each one of you lay something aside, storing up as he may prosper, that there be no collections when I come. Now, one reason I think those words were written in 1 Corinthians 16 is that the church was coming together anyway. You see that in the scriptures. You see that in secular history. There was this history of regular meetings. I don't think Paul is just pulling something out of his robe. Hey, how about Sunday? It was already happening. So I think that's one reason that Sunday is mentioned. And we read about those gatherings again in the Bible and outside the Bible. So I think Paul was taking advantage of that gathering, but I think there was something else that was going on in this writing to the church at Corinth. I think that he recognized that it's a whole lot easier to have a regular pattern of giving, regular setting aside. Now, specifically in Corinth, at 1 Corinthians 16, there was this need. They were taking a collection for saints that he was going to take with him. He didn't want it to be a gigantic collection when he came, and plus that's hard. Well, here's Paul. He's ready to take the money to these people. I don't know how much I have. What have you been setting aside regularly on a weekly basis so that when he comes, you don't have to go through with all that? Secondly, it's just easier. It truly is easier to get into the habit of regular giving. What he's encouraging them to is, hey, how about every week? And I think he's encouraging them to what we see at the bottom of the screen, giving needs to be a regular part of our lives. That's one reason. That's one reason we take up a collection every Sunday. Every Sunday, we're going to have communion. Every Sunday, we're going to be giving. And I do remind you that the work here, it goes on week in and week out, whether you're here or gone week out or week in. And I realize that things have changed quite a bit in our culture over the last several decades. And people are just more fluid and they travel and they're here or not here on any given Sunday. I understand that. But what Paul is calling us to is a sense of regularity. Vacations and times away shouldn't be an opportunity to, hey, I can give less. I think that may happen, and I think when it does, I think my best way of thinking is it's not at all deliberate. It just happens. In other words, here's one way of giving. I'm going to give whenever I'm here. Whenever I'm here, I'm going to give. When I'm away, I don't think about it quite as much, even though the work goes on continually. I don't know if you've ever caught yourself doing that. If you have, uncatch yourself. Just saying. You know what happens if you skip a car payment? You work around it. I couldn't make my car payment this month. Why not? You didn't have the money? No. I went on a trip to Montana, and I was away the day I normally send the check. Have you ever heard of bank drafts? No one would have said that 20 or 30 years ago, maybe, but they do now. Sure enough, there's a way to do it. Now, our giving to God, please don't misunderstand. It is not a matter of obligation. No, it's not a matter of indebtedness, not in the normal sense. No one's going to knock on your door. No one's going to be sending you a card. This is all a matter of the heart between me and between God. But what we have done as a body of people is that we've actually, legally, we've signed some papers, legal commitments for regular cash outflow for this, that, and the other thing. And you look what we're doing in this community, and you look at what goes on at the well, and you look what's happening with our youth ministry, and you look what's happening in this and that and other programs. They don't just happen by accident. First of all, they happen because of great human beings being in the mix. But those things take money. And I'm thankful for all that we are able to do as a church this size. And I understand that people's incomes might fluctuate. You may be saying, my income stream isn't regular, so what should I do about my giving? Well, I think you see this phrase in 1 Corinthians 16 and verse 2. Storing up as he may prosper. You don't prosper, you've got nothing to give. Now think long and hard before you decide, I haven't prospered. But I don't think Paul at all is trying to establish some rule of Sunday only giving. I mean, just think about that. This need arose on Tuesday. Sorry, we'll wait 5 days and we'll see if we can help you out. That's not what he's saying. I think the big emphasis is, first of all, they are coming together on Sunday. It's already established, and he's saying, the more regular your giving is, the better and the easier it's going to be. It's not a demand to give every Sunday. Maybe your income doesn't come in every Sunday. You give as you're prospered. You give as a matter of the heart. You want a rule for giving? It's this. Give regularly as God prospers you. Simple as that. Give regularly as God prospers you. If you want a rule of thumb, here's one. Give every week. There's your rule of thumb. And as a matter of fact, you see it on the screen, just sort of to emphasize this idea of first fruits giving. Here's a great rule of thumb. First day of the week. Just as Sunday occupies the first day of the week, regular giving to God should occupy the first place when it comes to money. You're filling out a budget for the year. You're looking at where your money's going to go. Where's it going to go first? And it ought to be to God. I mentioned being away in Montana while you're I don't know, let me know about your Montana trip when you get back, but we got ways around that. I'm thankful we've had ways around that here with ACHs and bank drafts. I mentioned those from time to time. Those were a tremendous, unspeakably tremendous help during COVID. So thankful that we had those in place. And all you got to do is contact the office. And that amount of money, whatever you decide, every week, every month, twice, whatever you decide, it's just taken out of your bank account, just like a car payment or a house payment or whatever it might be. What you're doing is helping yourself give as you purpose and to give as you prosper. Now, another thing it does, it keeps our income flow, which you intend to be giving anyway, on a more even keel. I'm thankful for the app. There are a number of people that just take out the phones and give every week. You can give any time, any place. I understand that we don't take up near the amount of money and cash in here that we used to. Again, I don't know a dollar amount, but I understand that. That's our culture. I think this is great with coins. When the baskets are passed here, people are giving. We're not hearing a bunch of nickels and quarters going in. It's almost all paper, and some people aren't doing that at all. And you may say, it sort of looks weird if I'm not giving. I think it looks less and less weird if you're thinking about that because of the opportunities that we offer that have nothing to do with a basket being passed. What I will say, however it is you decide to give, let it be regular and let it be first place. And you might be surprised. But over and over, I've seen how God can bless that. Just as a personal testimony, that's the way we have always operated in our family. It is the first item in our budget, and it has served us well. Give serious consideration to that. The greatest motivation for giving, it is not a command to give. It's not a command to give on the first day of the week. Rather, it's the example that God himself set. Never forget that as you purpose in your heart what you want to give on a regular basis to a local work. The motivation is John 3:16. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. How do we pay God back for that? And I'll have more to say about that in our lessons on baptism. But how do we pay God back for that? And the answer is, there's no way. There's no way. How do you say thank you to God? Oh, there is a way. And you can even say thank you with your money. I don't make light of money. I don't say money is nothing. You've got to have money to exist. The poor need money from those who are less poor in order to exist and to thrive. The rich are called to be rich in good works, and we have an obligation to give. Give here, give out there, to be generous with what God has given to us. And perhaps it starts by giving ourselves to God. Even in baptism, you see that enacted. A person comes and they give their body in baptism. It's an act of surrendering to the one who is baptizing as though you were dead. And we're putting that dead body in the water and resurrecting a live body, ready to walk in newness of life. And as I come out of that water, what I've done, if baptism means anything, is made a commitment to God, a commitment to put God first in every aspect of my life, which, yes, would include money, include giving of money, giving of time, giving of my spirit, doing everything I can to try to bring people to Jesus. If you haven't taken that step, if we can help you with that decision, we'd be glad to do it right now, this very hour. If you need to ask for prayers for this church, for anything that's going on in your life, there's always that opportunity, but we're here together as well. If you need to respond to that invitation, come to the front right now. Let's stand. Let's sing.